I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer. God of all places and times and time zones, we gather this morning across computers and phone screens with spotty internet connections, with the distractions of life in full force. We gather from our homes, residence hall rooms, outside, in our cars, on our ways to and from, with those we have spent day in and day out with for months, or with others we have just met from 6 feet away. We are scattered, but also together, apart and also connected. Nourishing God, help us to carve out a moment in this frenetic time in order to be as present as we can for this ritual of celebration and community, of marking the beginning of this academic year. Shower your spirit of courage, creativity, resilience, compassion, and grace upon students and faculty and staff, that together we might learn and grow and care for one another and for our greater community. Infuse our time together this morning with possibility, hope, and joy. Amen.
Welcome to the 2020-2021 academic year at Pacific Lutheran University. I'm Dr. Joanna Gregson, Provost and the MC for today's Convocation. I'm delighted to welcome you to PLU's 131st year. In our time together today, I'll begin by sharing a few thoughts for you to contemplate as you begin your journey at PLU. I'll introduce President Belton, and then I'll return later in the program, without my hat, to moderate a conversation with a panel featuring a current PLU student, an alumnus, and a faculty member. Whether this is your first college convocation or, for returning students, faculty, and staff, one of many, you know academic ceremonies like this usually include a pretty standard agenda and tone. Typically, we share messages of welcome, positivity, and excitement to begin the academic year on a shared foundation of optimism, hope, and care. And typically, the audience sits together in a large room and passively listens to these messages. While we'll still be sharing our support and excitement for another year, and while optimism, hope, and care remain the cornerstones of our shared foundation, this year will be like nothing any of us has experienced before, and that includes Convocation. With that in mind, in this Convocation, we'll be inviting students to engage in conversation with classmates, which requires a higher level of commitment and care than an academic ceremony typically does. We ask that you immerse yourself in this experience, and that to do so, you put away cell phones, unless you're watching this on it, and other distractions. Now, we may not be together in the same room, or even be in the same city, state, or country, but please know that staff, faculty, and your PLU peers are here to cheer you on and support you through this journey. Having said that, we also hope that you will support and care for each other, that your introduction to PLU is also the beginning of your playing a vital role as a PLU community member. Today, we'll be sharing more about what this looks like. It is now my pleasure to introduce President Alan Belton.
Convocation is a calling together of the PLU community, a gathering that, even in this distance format, is designed to welcome students to university life. It is a rite of passage inviting you to subscribe to the common values we hold dear and are called out in our mission: thoughtful inquiry, service, leadership, and care. The values that have shaped our university remain vitally present today. Our hope is that you reflect on these values in the months ahead and incorporate them into your learning and into your actions. This day is the start of your academic career at PLU, the first bookend of your journey. The other bookend is, of course, commencement, when you will march to the applause of faculty, staff, friends, and family on your way to walking across the stage and receiving your degree. The space between the two bookends is your story to write, your PLU experience. As you write your story, we look forward to getting to know each of you and your aspirations, to teaching you and to learning with and from you. As you think about your PLU journey, ask yourself not only what you can do to enrich your experience, but how you might uplift the journey of those around you. Angie Thomas, author of common reading book, The Hate You Give, asks, what's the point of having a voice if you're going to be silent in those moments you shouldn't be? In reflecting on this, I ask you to think about what really matters to you and how you might thoughtfully contribute to learn from and care for the broader community. How will you live out in your actions the PLU mission to educate for lives of thoughtful inquiry, service, leadership, and care? Care for other people, care for your communities, and care for the earth. Congratulations and good luck on your journey, because now, more than ever, the world needs more Lutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. We'll turn now to a panel discussion on a host of ideas related to PLU's mission and values. Joining me are 3 panelists representing the PLU community, a student, a faculty member, and a member of the Board of Regents, who is also an alumnus. Our panelists are Dr. Bridget Yaden, Professor of Hispanic Studies, Chair of the Faculty, Director of the Language Resource Center, and Co-Director of the Parkland Literacy Center. Dr. Joyce Barr, PLU alumnus from the classes of 1976 and 2008, and a member of PLU's Board of Regents. Dr. Barr's career as a diplomat and a foreign service officer in the Department of State included roles as the U.S. Ambassador to Namibia and Assistant Secretary of State. She is currently a professor of practice in government and international affairs at Virginia Tech. And Carlos de Jesus Alvarez Ayala, current student from the class of 21. Carlos serves as the ASPLU Vice President and is an advisory member to the Board of Regents. He's a Chinese study major with minors in economics and data science. Thank you all for being with us today. I'll pose each question to the group and then invite you all to respond. Let's begin with a question that gets to the heart of our mission. What motivates or inspires you to lead a life of thoughtful inquiry, service, leadership, and care, especially considering the current national climate? Joyce, could you get us started?
Okay, thank you very much. What keeps me going right now is that I know that we will get past the challenges we have now, and I also think that we can do better, and I want to do my part to do whatever I can to ensure that the community that we live in is one where everyone has an opportunity to thrive and to achieve. Most recently, I have been very much inspired by John Lewis, who recently passed away, because in my view, he always lived what he believed. I've met him several times, and early in my career, I was absolutely no one that he needed to deal with, but he was always giving and inspiring. And I think that he really walked the talk, and that helps me, because right now I think we've got a lot going on, but I believe in this country. I believe we can do better, and the education I received at PLU helps me to think about things and find ways to push our agenda forward and to try to make things better for us all.
For me, as a first generation college student coming from a Hispanic family, it's really important to spend time in community with my family. Both our perspective and the perspective of our community, I think, is what inspires me. The goal of wanting to, have our children succeed and be able to create a better future with each other. I think as a PLU student, I've been able to really find new perspectives and new ways of learning and ideas. And it's when I spend my time with my family and I share what I've learned here that I really feel encouraged and inspired to continue uplifting community.
Well, first and foremost, it's the students that motivates me to live our PLU mission. It's our past students, our present students, and our future students. When my areas of research, teaching, and service all combine into the mission, it's really all about getting more students around the country studying a second language and really deepening their understanding of other cultures and of others. Along the same lines, my research and my teaching also align with supporting heritage speakers in seeing their linguistic and cultural heritage as assets and not as deficits. They're assets to be celebrated. And in this current climate of really reckoning and addressing systemic racism, the small things we can do in language programs, like deeper cultural understanding, supporting our heritage speakers, and celebrating linguistic assets, these all increase empathy and a deeper cultural understanding. And they're very two small pieces in the very large national issue of institutional racism. But we're, through our language courses and through my work living the mission of PLU, I hope to make a difference.
Thank you, Bridget. Now I'd like to shift to thinking about purpose and meaning. How have you found joy, purpose, and meaning, particularly during the current global pandemic? Carlos, let's start with you this time.
For me, it's been really interesting. I think in the spring is when I got my first taste of what online class and an online experience at PLU might be like. And it's been the little things like going out on walks and exercising, finding new ways to journal, or just, reflecting on where I'm going this upcoming year and what I want to do with my last year at PLU that have really just kept me motivated and grounded on my goals.
Well, I'll have to start off by saying that I did a lot of grieving in the early stages of the pandemic for all the things that we had to postpone or to cancel. But like Carlos, I've found new ways to celebrate and to find joy. And some of the ways I found joy is reimagining how I connect with my colleagues. We've done things like virtual book clubs and virtual happy hour celebrations. I found joy in spending time with my youngest son, who's still at home 24/7. We're spending time together. And we're reimagining simple things like how we exercise. We used to drive to the Y together, and then we'd go off and do our separate exercising. Now we walk through our own neighborhood together, and we wave at our neighbors and get to know our neighborhood better. I've also been encouraged or perhaps forced to slow down in a lot of ways and kind of be more reflective about things. I've been able to find purpose and meaning in looking at new ways of teaching and learning. My colleagues and I have done a lot of work this summer in preparing for fall and thinking of new ways of teaching and learning in this current environment. So I've really been inspired and found purpose in that. And in terms of thinking of access and equity, I've been inspired by thinking of new ways to provide access to things like conferences and professional development. That's a big part of my service. I've participated in a lot of national conferences that are now online, and I'm helping to plan a big one for November. And since it's the first time it's ever been online, it really is an opportunity to have access, to be an accessible professional development for folks around the country who, for reasons of time and finances, might not have attended the face-to-face conference. So it's kind of reimagining, finding joy, meaning, and purpose in new ways.
So I agree with Bridget that initially I was grieving, but then I thought you can't spend a whole lot of time doing that, get busy. So I'm a member of a number of organizations, and we had to figure out how to do it online. And some of it was kind of funny because some of my colleagues were older than I am, and they had real challenges with learning how to use the technology. And I really enjoyed sort of laughing and trying to help. But from that standpoint, then I decided that I had to be selective about my time because I was a member of so many different organizations. And when you first start getting into this, it's difficult to figure out how to put things online in a meaningful way for the people that participate. So I spent time learning, time trying to help other people learn so that we could use this platform, and then participating in so many webinars. But it was good because I had time to do it, where normally I would be out involved in other things that would take me away from my condo. And also I've enjoyed being in touch with the Board of Regents and doing the planning and imagining for Pacific Lutheran so that we make sure that this virus does not stop us from providing the outstanding atmosphere and education that we want to give to our students in Pacific Lutheran. And that's taken some time, some reimagining, but it's really kept me energized.
Thank you, Joyce. PLU students join the fabric of the broader university community, each arriving with their individual story and journey. How have you shared your story, and what are some strategies for Lutes to share their stories with each other? How can we all be better listeners to hear and support each other's unique journeys? Bridget, why don't you kick us off?
I'm happy to do so. So this June, I started my 25th year at PLU. And when I think about my journey before PLU and at PLU, we're the kind of place where we encourage everyone, faculty, staff, and students, to think about their vocational journeys and to reflect on them and to share them. So one specific way that I've been able to reflect on my own journey is through thinking of myself, becoming to see myself as a first generation or first in family college student like Carlos. But when I was a college student back in the late 80s, that wasn't a term that I knew that was presented to me. I just kind of showed up to college and didn't know what questions to ask, didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm really appreciative as I've reflected on my vocational journey through the support of programs at PLU. I've been able to come to that identity myself and then support the many faculty, staff, and students who also identify as first in family. So things like panels, residence hall events, and other ways to support our students. We have a large population of first in family students. So that's just one small way. And thinking of listening, Joanna, I think oftentimes we listen to figure out what we're going to say next and when it's our turn to speak, right? But we really need to listen to hear. And as I spoke about empathy earlier, empathy that comes from studying another language or another culture, we listen to be empathetic, but we can also move beyond empathy and move to compassion. For example, I was in a workshop this summer with other faculty and staff, a compassionate culture collective, to learn more about compassion and how PLU can be a more compassionate place. And I've learned to see compassion as an active verb. So it goes beyond listening, hearing, and empathy to actually compassion, which means listening to others, but then acting to relieve their stress and anxiety and their pain. And so we can all be better listeners and move beyond just listening to hear, and then listening to act.
Yeah, I think storytelling is, it's been a really important part of my journey at PLU. Wanting to do both the serving and leadership role, but also trying to think, how am I leading in my own life, and how can I lean on those passions to be able to, create something better for myself and for my family. And that was the original idea that got me to PLU. When I think about listening here at PLU, I think it's really cool because it doesn't matter where you go. Resources, people, staff, faculty, everyone has an open ear and an open heart. Here I've been able to explore many ideas from, okay, what if I wanted to go into a nonprofit or work in the government, right? Anyone here will be able to tell you, you know what, you should chase that passion, you should follow your heart. For me, that's been the most important thing.
Well, for me, I share PLU's story by constantly trying to recruit people to come to PLU. And a lot of my former colleagues, their children have grown up overseas. And when they come back, depending upon how much time they've spent abroad, many of them are interested in a smaller school, in a more supportive atmosphere. And boy, I jump right into that. And so far I think I've only been able to get maybe 3, but I keep working on it because I think it is very important. Also, since I'm teaching for Virginia Tech, I don't pass up many opportunities to make comparisons. I have to be careful because I know sometimes, they probably get tired of it. But you know, it's a different perspective at a large university, but there are things I believe that they could learn or things that we can incorporate in our small class, and I try to do so, and I try to attribute it. With listening, it is a skill and it takes a while to develop it, especially when you're very busy and you have a lot on your mind and you're talking to someone. And sometimes you are in a rush to make sure that they hear you, but many times people want to be heard. And I find that if I'm having a kind of a frantic conversation with somebody and I see that they're not listening, I just stop and take a breath, because often they have something that they want to tell me. And if I listen, you know, give them a few minutes and listen, I may not have to say what I need to say. And this is something that's been hard for me to learn, but my life has been easier because I do. And it seems like the more in a hurry you are to get something out, that's exactly the time when you should take a breath and listen. It's difficult, but I think it's well worth it. And it's saved me from myself many times, or from saying something that would have been the wrong thing to say at that time, because this person was already in another space or is very emotional about something. And to me, it's just, you know, conversation. What did you think? So it's when the time pressure is on, I think that's when you should strive to listen more, because that's when you're going to get information that you need. But it takes practice.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, everyone. I have just one final question, and I'd love to hear about this from each of you. What advice do you have for Lutes who are beginning their academic careers at PLU in the context of COVID-19?
I can start us off.
Carlos, great.
I would say lead with hope. I think right now things look very cloudy, or things are uncertain about how the future will plan out. But I think if we're able to lead with hope and encourage ourselves to say, you know, what are our priorities, what are our values, how will we want to lead in this year, and be able to be yourself, right? If it's your first year at PLU in a pandemic that probably nobody has experienced, it's going to be a little bit hard. It's going to be a little bit tough, and you'll have to navigate different things. So it's important to have hope during those times.
I can go next, and I agree with Carlos that hope is going to be very important this next year for all of us. You know, I haven't really liked the term social distancing, because really what we're doing is physical distancing for health reasons. So don't socially distance. Connect with faculty, staff, and students in ways that are meaningful to you. And for example, with your classes, and I would say this any year, but definitely this year, know that your faculty members are ready, your professors are ready. We've been working hard all summer to think of new ways to teach and learn. But the second you have a question, you feel stuck, reach out to us, connect with us. We're here to support you. We are that kind of a place where we're gonna want your questions and we're gonna answer them to support you. You know, get involved, envision new ways you can see yourself getting involved in clubs and organizations. For example, as Joanna said earlier, I co-direct the Parkland Literacy Center that provides free tutoring for local middle and high school students in our own PLU neighborhood. We're gonna continue our work this summer, but through virtual tutoring, and students can get involved. You can be in the comfort of your residence hall or home, helping a junior high or senior high kid in our neighborhood with their own homework over Zoom, for example. And then finally, practice self-care. Both self and care are four-letter words, but they shouldn't be seen as a four-letter word, right? Self-care is really important. And to be able to practice what I was talking about earlier, practice empathy, practice compassion, you first have to take care of yourself. So find ways that are meaningful to you to take care of yourself, and don't be afraid to call it out and name it and say that you need some self-care.
Well, I think that people should begin with the end in mind, and that would be graduation. This is the beginning of a very exciting journey, but it can also be very challenging. Nobody knew last year that we would be operating this way because we can't be together. And as you start your journey at Pacific Lutheran, there are going to be things that come at you that you never anticipated. Some are going to be harder than others. But what you have to do is decide you're going to complete it. You may get knocked off the path. Sometimes there are things that happen to us and we get sidetracked. We can't continue at that time. But if you want it, you will get it. Believe in yourself and reach out to all of the resources at Pacific Lutheran. I graduated a long time ago. I was a mess. And I was constantly, something was happening. I didn't have money. My housing was messed up. There was something going on all the time. But the minute I reached out for help, someone was there. That help is available to you. I was also the first person in my family to go to college. And they did their best to help me, but sometimes they really just did not know what I needed. But there are people at this institution that know what you need. They're here to help you. Some of the things we're dealing with are unprecedented. So you might be part of the problem solving. You might be part of the solution as we work through how to help you, what we need to do. Maybe it's something that we need to extend to other students. But just keep that goal in mind, because there are going to be a lot of days when you think, oh no, it's too hard, or I don't want to do it, or, just different things happen and you think, I'm not as inspired today. You'll be inspired tomorrow. Just keep going, because if you want it, this institution will help you to get there. So, here we are. It's a brand new year, and it's a brand new you. You're going to make it.
Thank you all for participating in our discussion and sharing your insights and experiences. I'm now delighted to share with you a selection performed by the Choir of the West and directed by Dr. Richard Nance. is now my pleasure to invite President Belton to declare the formal opening of the academic year.
Martin Luther said, "When schools flourish, all things flourish." On behalf of the Board of Regents, the faculty, staff, and students of Pacific Lutheran University, I hereby declare that the 2020-2021 academic year, the 131st year of this university, is now in session. Pastor Rude will now conclude today's ceremony with a sending blessing as we begin the new academic year.
As we conclude this ceremony today, receive this blessing. May the words of affirmation and care that have been spoken today echo in your mind when doubt or fear creeps in. May the rituals shared today connect you with those who have gone before to give you perspective and a place to belong. May those who helped you arrive in this moment here today continue to nourish and sustain you when the days are long and when your energy is depleted. May the community of PLU be a source of inspiration and creativity when you feel stuck or overwhelmed, and when your passion finds purpose. May the God who dwells within and among us continue to kindle in you imagination, creativity, compassion with justice. May the call of your life enrich our world and deepen your commitment to its flourishing. And always, may you dwell in peace, be held in love, and be sustained by grace. Amen.
Good morning, Lutes. I'm Joanna Royce Davis, Vice President for Student Life. Welcome to PLU. In just a moment, you'll be invited to participate in the ringing in of the new academic year. If you were here with us in Centennial Square, you would be lined up around me while a few of your peers rang the bell in your honor. In just a moment, we'll introduce you to your new friends as they do just that.
My name is Daniel Hilton, hometown Federal Way, intended major business.
My name is Crystal Patterson. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I will be studying communications and gender, sexuality, and race studies. Okay.
My name is Madison Keaton. I'm from Puyallup, Washington, and I'll be majoring in biology.
My name is Felicity Ankrum. I'm from Puyallup, Washington. I'll be majoring in elementary education.
I'm Adam McAviney. I'm from Olympia, Washington, and I'll be studying poli-sci this year at PLU.